Yeah, welcome everybody out there to the Schools Out Forever Romancing the Stones League. We have some very exciting decks tonight. Some very exciting matches to show. I'm Jake Hilty. I have Steve McGrew here with me.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, and I'm pretty excited for some like very spicy middle school action.
Me too. So, have you had a chance to take a look at what our players are playing?
I have, and this first matchup between Eric and Robert, I think is going to be a really fun one. Which of those two here? Which of the two decks are you most excited about? We can talk about that one while they're getting ready.
Ooh, so we're not going to tell them what they are, right?
No, I mean we can, but
yeah.
but
okay. Well, it's definitely I'm more excited about Eric's deck.
Coolest card in Eric's deck. Before we say what it is, cool in your opinion, the coolest card.
That it's between two for me. I think it's Deranged Hermit, but
I was going to say Anarchist, but I'll take
that was the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are our two hints as to what this deck is. It's yeah. I'm happy to share with the audience what he's playing. We're going to see him play a Naya Astral Slide deck, featuring Cartographer, which is very exciting. And then yeah, in Robert's list, I feel like any exciting card that we would say, they would know instantly what he was playing. I'll say my card I'm most excited for is Lynn Civi.
I like Dismantling Blow.
Yeah, Dismantling Blow is a spicy one. I will say, like, Dismantling Blow is the one I was like on the fence about whether or not that would give. But yeah, so Robert is on Blue White Rebels, Rebel Counter Rebels, I guess is the probably the right way to say that.
Yeah, and it looks like a no standstill version.
Yeah, yeah, no standstills and not really any card advantage outside of the Rebels themselves, which against Eric's deck might be a problem given the large amount of creature hate that he has available.
Yeah, we got 4 counterspell, 4 absorb.
Yeah.
Main disruption. Yeah, so the reason why I said Deranged Hermit for the slide deck is because you kind of think to put like a one of Anarchist, but I never thought to put a Hermit in there.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like Deranged Hermit is sort of the all-star creature of middle school right now. It's good in really every deck.
Yeah, I'd want one in just about anything green.
Yeah. And as for Robert's deck, I was excited about this not only because, I mean, it's awesome that he's playing Counter Rebels, but this particular Counter Rebels build is very much an actual Rebels deck. Like, I think sometimes you see some decks with a small Rebel package, but this is full on. And now the action has started, so I'm excited. Caffrey started the way that I think he probably always wants to start, which is turn 1 Bird. I'm trying to think if there's a deck that doesn't want to do that has 4 Birds of Paradise in it, but yeah, Robert comes right back with the turn 1 Ramosin Sergeant. And for those unfamiliar with the Rebel mechanic, the idea of these guys is they all, not all, but many of them have a mechanic or an activated ability that says pay some amount of money and tap, go and search your library for a Rebel that costs 1 less than the amount of mana you paid and put it directly into play. So it is a threat immediately to go, or like to continue to just go and get more and more advantage, more and more Rebels. But it does require a fair amount of mana.
Yeah, I was going to look up it's 3 for the activation cost. Meanwhile, Caffrey getting a Cartographer into play.
Yeah, and Cartographer, another card you may or may not be familiar with, is a pretty cool one. It returns lands from your graveyard, and once Caffrey really gets going with Astral Slide, he can do some pretty neat tricks with cycling a land and then flickering his Cartographer, getting back the land, and kind of keeping the loops going and kind of getting lots of triggers.
Yeah, he recycled the Wooded Foothills there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A really solid play early in the game, right? I mean, I think Caffrey also has... Oh, no, he eschewed Wastelands. I've seen a build of this surprisingly enough, with Wastelands, but he decided not to go with any, which is fine. I think like it's a good call in this matchup since Robert is very heavy on basics. And now he's just going beatdown mode with that Cartographer, which I can respect. The 2/2 into the 2/1/1s feels right.
Yeah, definitely. Want to keep those rebels in play.
It's true. So I wonder for Robert, I mean, obviously the idea here is you get a rebel or two in play, and then you just kind of hold up counter spells, and then end step you go and get more rebels and kind of keep it going. I wonder after this point if we'll see him cast another spell on his own turn.
You don't want to unless you have to.
Yeah. And I mean, and at this point, he already has 2 different rebels in play, and he can get up to Lin Civi, which is the best rebel because it pays the amount of X to get any X or less rebel into play, and you can kind of just get whatever you want from that point. Defiant Falcon can go get that one. So, yeah, I don't really see a reason for him to want to do that.
Yeah, the only things that he can really do on his turn are play creatures, which, as we've discussed, not that great. You can play Mother of Runes because I don't think that's a rebel, right?
So yeah, she is not a rebel. Mom is not a rebel, sadly.
No.
And
need Mother of Goons for that, maybe.
Yeah.
The other one is Wrath of God, which is, you play it when you need to.
Yeah. So we had from Caffrey there an end step cycle of a land, and then a fetch. I'm interested in what he's trying to kind of build toward there. Oh, I figured it out.
Yeah.
It was Plow Under. But
yeah, that's not going to happen.
Casually absorbed by Robert. There was some style to that absorbing of the Plow Under.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's what the deck's trying to do. And to be fair, even with that absorb, Caffrey is like going to be ahead in this race if every turn we have to see a counter from Robert's side.
Yeah. Right now it's a battle of, bombs versus answers, and you don't want to have dead draws.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to be totally fair, Robert doesn't really have that many. I mean, he has 8 counter spells. He has 4 counter spell, 4 absorb. So it's not like he's always going to have a counter in hand.
It's also very difficult for Robert to play more than 1 counter spell per turn in the main deck.
That's true.
So,
ooh, there's the Astral Slide.
Yeah.
Was the Plow Under a bait spell?
I would have to assume so.
Oh, and it looks like it's resolved. Now, one, that really messes with the beatdown plan just in general. I don't know how much experience people have playing against an Astral Slide, but boy, can it be tough if you're trying to win with creatures. That is, Caffrey, I think, was trying to make sure he knew what Defiant Falcon did there. Robert does have an out to an Astral Slide kind of dominating the board, in addition to the fact that Caffrey can just not have enough cyclers. And that is, he does have that Dismantling Blow and 2 Disenchants in his main deck. Oh, here comes the recruit. I'm assuming this is getting Lin Civi. Defiant Falcon is able to do that. And it looks like there is an end step cycle flickering that Lin Civi, which is a pretty solid play. It denies Lin Civi the ability to recruit because it means that she'll be summoning sick until the next turn cycle goes through. Because Astral Slide isn't actually a flicker, right? It's the same as Flicker Wisp. Oh, I think he accidentally put that Lin Civi into his hand that is flickered out of play. There he goes. I was gonna say that one's not in your hand. But yeah, this is honestly it's really similar to a line that sometimes you'll see at a Death and Taxes where they'll kind of prevent something from attacking for multiple turns, or in this case, activating for multiple turns by virtue of cycling. Oh, and there's the Dismantling Blow.
Yeah, sometimes you get elated to resolve an enchantment in this format, and the only reason it resolved was because they had the disenchant. However, since this wasn't kicked, the dismantling blow, just an expensive disenchant.
Yeah. If you don't get to pay the full 6 mana for it, it's a little bit sad. You really want to draw those 2 extra cards.
Yeah, I think it's a worthy gamble though.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like there was a little confusion about what creatures were in play and available to block, but Defiant Falcon ended up coming in there just for its 1 chip damage. And Rosen Sargent is kind of stuck, just hanging out with nothing to recruit, or no ability to recruit here. Oh man, what an all-star, Krosan Tusker. I feel like Krosan Tusker, when Commander or EDH first started being a set, was like the best. And I feel like now it never sees play anymore, but it does look good in a deck where cycling matters. It just does so much.
Yeah, it really does.
A 2-for-1 and like drawing that land is actually, I think, very relevant to Caffrey's game plan. It's a very mana intensive deck, even though a lot of that mana is spent just cycling things. So yeah, I think I'm curious as to whether or not he has found another Astral Slide yet. It doesn't look like it.
No, I think I was trying to figure out what some of the plans Eric has that could lead to victory here. Obviously, playing Slide is one of them. The other could be a really big decree at some point, but I think there might have been a missed land drop on that turn, so that might be like a late Hail Mary type of thing.
Yeah, I think didn't he play the land off the Tusker?
Oh, possibly.
Yeah. I mean, he also does have a couple Exalted Angels.
Yeah.
And some Renewed Faiths to just really make sure that he's never going to run out of life. But yeah, the Exalted Angels, I think, could be a little bit problematic, assuming Robert doesn't have, doesn't have the Swords to Plowshares in hand. Because that's a pretty big creature to be fighting against here.
Yeah, and it's difficult to want to counter it, right? Because it starts out 3 mana, they might have something behind it.
Yeah. Caffrey does not have a Lightning Rift anywhere in his list, right? Doesn't look like it. That's interesting. I would have thought that in an Astral Slide deck, or in a deck that's like so focused on cycling that's already running the red splash, that Lightning Rift would feel pretty free. Oh man, is this the big mama? It is. Joval Queen.
Nice.
That's a great one. So I think I might be wrong here. I'm going to look it up, but my guess is 4/7 Vigilance. Yep, 4/7 Vigilance. I know my rebels. Yeah, that's a big critter for Caffrey to deal with without his Astral Slide in play. But yeah, I guess if you make your land drops, I mean, 7 mana is a lot. Or 6 mana, I mean, is a lot to go and get a big creature. But yeah, it really does dominate the board once it's in play.
Yeah, 6 is very possible, though, as we saw here. And I think Eric is definitely on the back foot here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Robert is playing like 25 or so lands. So like he is expecting to get up to that 5 and 6 range pretty regularly. He also has a pretty spicy one that I hope gets I'm probably not tutored for in this game, but is a card that I really enjoy. But Caffrey does have a fair amount of outs. I mean, it really depends on how many counters Robert has gotten. Oof, the triple Cartographer, unbeatable.
Wow.
I mean, and even in this case, right? So here, Cartographer is like a 4 mana 2/2 draw card, which isn't great, but is like, it's not like it's the worst thing that's ever happened. in this spot. Like he's adding to the board so other things can attack. At some point, he'll have potentially enough creatures to just block the Joval Queen, and it does like draw a card as long as he has those cycling lands in the yard. So it's not great, but it's not terrible.
Yeah,
it is tough. I mean, the Rebel deck does have a ton of inevitability here, right? So even if these creatures die, let's see if you can bring them back. Just got the Ramosin's Sky Marshal. I think that's the only 5-drop. Yeah.
Does he fly? He looks like he flies.
I mean, I believe he does, but that's not a great guide in these old Magic cards sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, a 3/3 flyer for 5 with the recruiting ability. But in this case, I think the recruiting ability is pretty secondary.
All right, here we go with the 3 middle.
Yeah, this is a swing for 8. I mean, this is a pretty big one. And I mean, Caffrey can block flyers. He does have the birds. He has these cartographers that can get in the way of the Joval Queen. Can't kill it. Can't block and kill it because he only has 6 power versus that 4/7. So, man. He does have a fair amount of things that he can search for here. And to be fair, his removal, he does have the Swords to Plowshares available, potentially. So, like, that's a pretty good answer to some of these larger creatures. You can't then get them back with Linsivy. It's probably at that point maybe better to go after Linsivy herself, but it can be hard because she can just recruit another one and die and then get shuffled right back in. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the ideal line is if you have to go for swords, but it didn't look like he had it. He cycled and didn't find the swords there, or chose not to use it. If he did, I think he would have.
He definitely would have.
Yeah.
Try to make them, either the swords resolves, or maybe they tap out something on their turn. You can make a play.
Yeah.
And playing against counter rebels, it's one of those kinds of decks where you might have lost several turns before you think you did.
Yeah. There is a certain amount of grind and inevitability going on this side of the board, on Robert's side of the board. It's interesting. I think this is only the second time I've seen counter rebels, but it looks really good here. I mean, it's doing all the things it should be doing. It played 1 or 2 early creatures and then did exactly what it wanted to. Just didn't ever need to tap mana on its own turn. Like, Joval Queen is big enough that it was just monstrous on the board. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's looking like a good deck to me here. I'm curious how the rest of the game and match go. But
so one very big benefit is if you figure out Eric's deck, and once you have the dismantling blow, then you can just play around everything basically.
Yeah.
And that seems like what happened, but it could have been by coincidence, or it could have been intended, drawn up that way.
Well, I have a little inside information on that, actually. Both Robert and Eric hang out in our Discord, and they were talking some trash once they saw that they got paired. And I believe something to the effect of, "I'm going to beat you so bad, I don't even care if you know my list." And posting lists happened. So I think they were both aware of exactly what the other person was playing.
That's right.
Which is, in the spirit of the thing, but is ultimately great. So right here, he just went and fetched and stepped 2 whip quarters, 1 off the Sergeant and 1 off the Linsivy. So 5 mana for 2 whip quarters. Ugh. And a sword.
Yeah. So these whip quarters are going to be the cleanup crew.
Yeah, and that package of just Ramosin Sergeant Whip Quarter, I think I've seen a couple more times in other middle school decks. That's the tiny Rebel package. Yeah. Just because Whip Quarter is a really efficient creature, a 2/2 for 2 in this format is fine. And then being able to tap down whatever. And I think there's a lot to be said there. So that to me is the core of the appeal of the Rebels. But obviously in this deck where you can go all the way up to the top and get the Joval Queen and stuff, it's also can be impressive. I just don't know if I want the 6 mana 4/7 in my deck. But if you're going all in, it seems great.
Yeah, definitely. I've been thinking about that, just the Sergeant Whip Quarter package as well, but in a different direction. I've been trying to figure out tribes for Shared Triumph wait, we need
Oh,
her.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you're playing, like, you can just play it in Rebels, sure, but that's not really a Sheer Triumph deck. That's a Rebels deck, I guess. But you can play it naming human, and then you can play Rebels in that along with other humans.
Yeah, Mother of Runes, Mom. Oh, here's the decree, the cycled
There we go.
decree.
All
Or
right.
is it a hard cast? Oh my goodness. Is this the swing? If it were hard cast, it would be for just one. So it has to be cycled, right?
Four
Yeah,
one ones. Yeah.
four 1/1s.
Okay.
Which probably keeps him alive barely.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, he's still getting hit for 4 in the air, but he gets to block the queen, the sergeant, and the Lincivy, it looks like. Man, Lincivy went into the red zone and rumbled.
Yeah.
I like that he's getting them out. What kind of cards? Oh, are those 90s X-Men or Marvel cards? That's great.
Possibly. I have one of those myself. I'll try to fetch it later.
Mm-mm.
It's the old Avengers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he takes an extra damage and tries to kill that Lincivy right here.
Well, he's at 7. I'm not sure.
I think it's 4 off the flyers. He's definitely got to block the Joval Queen, but then, yeah, so he can kill the Ramosan Sergeant and then just put 1 blocker each and have a blocker left, or have a token left, and then just take.
I think Lincivy's getting chumped.
Yeah, it looked that way. That was my question. Is like, do you kill the Ramosan Sergeant or do you triple block the Lincivy and take 1 from the Sergeant? I mean, it's kind of tough. They can't get another Lincivy, but I would almost want to get that off the board. There's so much more play when Lincivy is available than when she isn't, even if it's only for a turn. And I mean, it looks to me from the way that things were tapped that Robert likely has a counterspell in his hand, but there are outs. I mean, not outs, not like, end the game outs, but there are some things that Caffrey can do here to make it more of a game. Presumably, it involves like casting some bait spell and then casting Wrath.
That was my thought too. Wrath is the best thing to cast right here.
But what is the bait spell? Or I guess double Wrath if you play a land. But what, like,
he only has 2 slide? That's really hard.
Yeah, is Astral Slide good enough to draw a counterspell?
Well, I don't think you would have enough to play bait spell, slide, and cycle a bunch, but maybe.
Well, what I was thinking is use slide as the bait spell, right? So if you use slide as the bait spell.
Well, okay, decree hardcast for 1.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that has to end the game, right?
That was countered, yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any way out of it. So he has 2 tappers, so he leaves the token back. Oh yeah, he's scooping it up. I think he was in trouble there.
Yeah.
Down to 2, and he could just tap the 2 flyers also. That was an exciting game though. There were definitely some swings, but yeah, the counter rebel deck really does just have that like crushing inevitability if you can't deal with all the creatures on the board.
Yeah, that sort of went a little bit how I was worried it would go. The interesting card to me post board is Eric's 4 Orange Chance.
Oh yeah, that is very interesting.
Yeah,
I also wonder if Sterling Grove is a card just to make him have 2 disenchants for those slide effects. I think you really can control the game if you get slide going.
It's really good on turn 2.
Yeah.
Otherwise, situational could be okay.
I also, I mean, I know for a fact that Caffrey made his sideboard on right before the league started as he was sending his list. So I think he felt like there might be some gaps. And I'm guessing, though I'm not certain, that he might not have considered counter rebels when he was constructing his sideboard.
It's hard to hit everything.
It is. It is. And I think in general, if you're thinking about like a if you're thinking about a aggro control deck or whatever, that does seem like a little bit of a gap, but it does seem like you should have some game against it. You have some inevitability and stuff. It's just a matter of how much card advantage they kind of have against you, and Rebels just happens to have quite a bit. It does all play to the board though, so maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll see.
Yeah. I was also taking a peek at Robert's sideboard, not seeing anything too relevant besides the extra disenchant effects. There's a disenchant and another dismantling blow.
How do you feel about those meddling mages?
That's okay too. It's actually a lot better because Eric doesn't have Lightning Rift.
Yeah, so I mean, I think at that point, if you name like Slide and Wrath of God, or maybe Slide, Wrath of God, and Swords to Plowshares in some ordering, like the game kind of just ends.
Possibly at that point, though, you're siding out. Bringing 4 mages if you want to land 2 of them. So maybe you can just like take out the moms. Do they actually do anything?
Mom felt a little bit anemic, and I was thinking that honestly, the Swords to Plowshares doesn't feel that good.
This is where knowing your opponent's exact list is kind of helpful, because like if there was the Lightning Rift, then you know that you might want the moms in to protect that, and it makes the mages worse.
Yeah.
But you know, if you didn't know that, maybe you play more conservatively.
Yeah, it's tough though. Even against Lightning Rift, Mom is a little bit rough, because like it's not hard if you have Lightning Rifts to like set up a situation where you just cycle twice.
Yeah. Overall, though, I think Eric's situation is a little easier post board.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he does get a little bit better. He has some pretty cool cards. Because if you can cast that Orm's Chant and draw the counterspell and then Wrath, or even just resolve your Astral Slides or whatever, there are several cards that are quite good to force through. And as you said, it's pretty hard until the kind of mid to late game for Robert to really have 2 counters up. And even if he has them up, to have 2 in hand is not that common, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though he does have a lot of kind of card advantage built into the Rebel package, he doesn't actually draw cards more than the 1 a turn.
Right. And you sort of, that the Rebel engine is going to turn on. And so it's going to do its thing. So how can you slow it down?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I'm excited to see another game in this match. Like I said, I'm very excited about both these decks. I'm glad to see people are playing some interesting things. And so far, I am very impressed by this Counter Rebels list. I've been working on a version with that package in black-white with just a splash of blue for Meddling Mage, because it's pretty free with the mana at the point that you're playing black-white together. But my disruption is all discard. It's just duresses and Cabal Therapies, which is a thing that's pretty nice to do with your extra Rosen Sergeants that just kind of end up laying around.
Yeah. Do you play?
Oh, go ahead.
I just keep thinking of was it Stormscape Apprentice, the blue 1/1 with the white and the black tap abilities.
I have not played it yet, but man, what a great
every
card.
time I'm in those colors, I want to, and then I don't.
Yeah. I played that card in Vintage a long time ago. When I was first getting into the format, there was a fish deck that was like blue-white fish that ran that as a tapper. I think that was I think that was like 2003 or 4. It's a long time ago.
Yeah. Do you think anyone ever tapped a Darksteel Colossus?
I mean, that's why it was there. That's why I had them. I have many memories of getting just destroyed by people with real Vintage decks trying to play those Stormscape Apprentices and Tariff to deal with their Darksteel Colossus, and frustrating. I still have a little like anxiety about about am I going to get beat by Tinker or Tendrils this game?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it looks like they're just about ready. We had some mulligans and stuff go there, I think. Yeah, it looks like a mulligan from Robert. But again, he undoes that mulligan. Oh, maybe not. He undoes that mulligan pretty quickly with the Rebels. Oh man, goes back again. I think this is mulligan number 2.
Yeah.
This also might be a part of the potential for Caffrey to have a victory here.
He's on the play. It's everything, every advantage you want.
Yeah, I mean, you never want your opponent to like go down to 5 or 4 cards. In these casual formats when you kind of want to have fun, but also you want to get that game back.
Mm-hmm. Since I'm not playing in the league, I'm a little out of touch, so I don't know the records. But.
I believe they're both 1-0. So this is only the second week of the league, so I think we have 1-0 players.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know Caffrey was very happy about his deck choice after his first round. He felt like the deck performed really well against his round 1 opponent.
It's the cleanest version of this deck that I've seen so far in the format.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So this is one of those decks that was right around the time of middle school ending. Mm-hmm. So it is missing a couple kind of key cards in my mind.
Right. Eternal Witness.
Yeah, Eternal Witness, and then a little bit later, Life from the Loam is a thing that you could imagine being involved too.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the World Championship deck, which I believe it's just green-white, and it's very controlling, and that has, the Witnesses.
Yeah, Witnesses and like a Chroma's Vengeance, I think.
Yeah.
I think this is the deck that would benefit the most from Witness, and it is a card I think that all the survival decks and stuff would play. Like we've talked a little bit about how that would be a great card in the format. Mm-hmm. So far a pretty slow start, just a cycle. Robert literally starting on one that comes into play tap lands, which by the way, I feel like those are underplayed. Those allied comes into play tap lands. I know by modern standards they are stone terrible,
right?
But they really do like. The difference between a deck that runs 4 of those and almost any other land that you could play and the amount of damage you take, plus in this case, like running 8 blue-white dual lands, 12 blue-white dual lands if you count the Flooded Strands, like his mana base, Roberts, is just rock solid.
Yeah.
And I know John Hammock with his control deck that did well at our Team Serious event, played a bunch of those, comes into play tapped ones and use them to good effect. I think it's an underplayed cycle.
Yeah, they're solid. I think people don't want to play too many of them because they can be bad in multiples. But they get better, they're great in this kind of deck. And it depends on if you have a turn 1 play or not. This deck kind of doesn't have many that are great.
Yeah, I think it's just Remotion Sergeant, and even then, if that's your turn 1 play, or in Mom, I guess Mom's pretty good on turn 1, but Remotion Sergeant on turn 1 is not a huge deal. So is this Exalted Angel getting countered? It looks that way. I was about to say, I wonder if we'll find out right now if he has Swords to Plowshares, but it looks like based on that fetch that it's a counter spell.
Yeah. Now, depending on hands, this is not seeing an advantage for either player yet.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, at this point...
Because the Rebels aren't online yet.
Exactly, yeah. With no Rebels going, it feels a little bit anemic to 1-for-1.
And this is devastating, missing a 3rd land drop.
That's true, man. This deck wants its lands drop. I mean, both decks want their land drops quite badly.
Right.
But the Rebel deck just really needs them. Oh, and here's the Cartographer to rub it in.
Yeah.
You don't miss your land drops when that happens.
I really wish Eric had Wastelands.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I just love blowing up people's lands.
Yeah. Well, and you don't need to run a ton of them. I feel like the lists I've seen that have run Wasteland have run like 2.
Yeah, 2 would be great.
But when they're good, they're incredible.
Yeah. Now, it might just be win more here because this looks great for Eric. But what I was going to say before the land drop miss was that that would be a good turn to play a Rebel on turn 3 because a lot of them cost 3 to activate.
Yeah. It looked like I thought for a second that he missed his didn't have a land in there, but he had 2. I was mistaken.
Yeah.
And yeah, just Cartographer beatdown is what we're seeing here.
It's looking very strong.
It is, but it can be undone pretty quickly. I mean, one, rebel that can fetch. Oof, that was not the way a man drawing a land puts down his card. Yeah, I think one rebel that can recruit in a land, and you're really off to the races here. But
yeah, I was also checking to see what had 3 toughness to continuously block.
I mean, Lin Civi is a really
right?
good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also good because you can get, you can get the card that I'm hoping that he kept in that we haven't seen yet. Defiant Vanguard going.
That's what I was going to say.
So that one's great because with Lin City going, it's like 6 mana kill a creature every turn that attacks, or kill an attacking creature every turn, which like for no card investment is a pretty good ability. But yeah, I think we're just seeing the kind of the rough side of even having a really good mana base that I was lauding. Like sometimes you just don't get there. That's magic. Mm-hmm. Out of curiosity, is that your preferred counterspell art? I mean, this is an important. So much of middle school is about style.
No, because I have the arena ones.
Oh yeah, the arena ones are great. Yeah.
Yeah.
The arena, those are my preferred disenchants as well. The arena ones.
Okay.
Ooh, and has to waste a counterspell on a cartographer. That can't feel good.
I think my secondary counterspells are the masks of Merfolk.
Oh yeah, that one's a good one. If you have brainstorm in your decks, like they're a pretty good match. I always like the Ice Age one. I don't know. I like part of it might just be the timing. Like that was when I started playing, so I like appreciate that aesthetic.
I definitely appreciate that aesthetic.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my favorite. Definitely the flaccid spell coming off the fingers is not my favorite, which is the original. Like I mean, maybe in beta or whatever, but
yeah, no.
And here comes an Astral Slide. Does he have a third counterspell? He has to, right? Yeah. I was gonna say.
What? Well,
if you don't draw any lands and you don't draw any rebels, what else can be in your hand? Like, there's only so many things it can be. Dismantling
blows.
Yeah, multiple dismantling blows. Uh-oh. Here's the third land. Is it early enough? Because if this is Lin Civi, and Caffrey doesn't have a way to remove it from the game, it can. Oh, it might be Whipcord. Oh, Meddling Mage. Interesting.
Meddling Mage.
What does he have for a single blue?
Blocks a 2/2. Okay.
Oh, he just tapped in a funny way. I get it.
Yeah. That is quite funny.
Yeah, so now he can.
We have a Response.
Oh, he didn't name Swords to Plowshares.
Well, that's the bold play. Name the thing you're actually scared of, and pray they don't have the swords.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. That is the play that you make, because if he has Swords to Plowshares there, are you winning anyway? If he has then anything else?
Yeah. The problem is that there's lots of things that are scary now.
Yeah. Oh man, imagine Plow Under. Oh my goodness. That's one of Plow
under your coastal tower.
Yeah, plow under your coastal. Put it on top or on bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. The caster gets to choose the order, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So you put the coastal tower on the bottom.
I'll say this: Caffrey is good at drawing some cartographers. I think that's his 4th one.
Yeah, maybe he's running the lucky 5.
Well, we did all this testing and we discovered that 5 was the right number. That's no. All right. So what's the most devastating follow-up here?
I think it depends on whether or not Robert has a Wrath, because just about any big creature is pretty devastating.
Yeah.
Otherwise, probably Slide.
Oh, looks like it was an Exalted Angel. I saw him flash that to this. I mean, it's the only morph in his deck also, but it was sort of funny. He's like, I'm going to play this one face down. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
One of these days, I'm going to play some weird morph creature and fake someone out with it. It's on the bucket list.
Elves plays the Tribal Force Mage, but it's always Tribal Force Mage, I guess.
Yeah, that one's really good.
I'm trying to think if there are any other ones that I have played in any decks.
Nichico Vigilante, maybe?
Oh, Vigilante's not bad. There are very few, though. Blistering Firecat. I've played Blistering Firecat before.
Yeah, there's nothing to... it's going to be Firecat, probably.
Yeah. Are any of the goblins?
Is there like one of the Pyromancer type guys with the morph? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There was a little action here. We saw, along with a Swords for the Exalted Angel, a Defiant Falcon, but then Caffrey had that kind of Swords follow-up. And it looks
We're
like...
somehow back to where it has been for most of the game.
Yeah, it looks like Robert is at 8.
Yeah, 8. And casting a Linsivy.
I mean, that's a good thing to cast. If you're going to get back into this game, I think it probably starts there. Blocking and then recruiting all the things.
Now, if we have like a slide cycle...
Yeah.
He's tapped out. Anything can happen here.
I mean, yeah, Plowlander is pretty good against Linsivy, too. I wonder if he sided out those Plowlanders, to be honest, because he was just worried they would never resolve.
It would be difficult for me, too. I love casting Plowlander. All right. Slide.
There's the Astral Slide. And I'm assuming he has a Cycler.
I guess not.
I think it might be correct to slide in the end step so it doesn't come back until your opponent's end step.
That's a good one.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so make a 1/1, draw a card, turn off your Linsivy for the next turn cycle is a pretty good little sequence. That is pretty good. And he's at 6.
Yeah, with
5 power in play. It seems like a pretty good spot.
Trying to count cards in hand for Robert.
Yeah.
All right, we got a Sergeant. That's not great.
Yeah, Sergeant and Linsivy is back. So like it really depends on kind of how many cyclers are there and when you want to do it. So there is an argument again, just kind of swing out and then cycle in the end step again, because you're still getting damage chipped in and he's not able to recruit that way.
Yeah, and it's also a pretty good thing that cycling draws cards.
It is. It's easy to kind of keep it going, or easier to keep it going. But again, I mean, I keep coming back to there are several plays that could be pretty good here. There's also the argument of like attack with everything, depending on how blocks go. You know, you can put damage on the stack with one of your, like if he double blocks one of the cartographers or something, like put damage on the stack to kill the sergeant and then cycle out the cartographer.
Yeah, that seems strong.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. It is nice too if you cycle out one of them, you get your cycling land back on the end step, which sets you up for taking out the Linsivy. Looks like just 1 block a piece there.
Yep.
Down to 4, and yeah, it seems like maybe.
There we go.
Does he have the 4th counterspell?
Oh.
Well.
Oh my goodness.
I
did not expect that.
I didn't either. And I mean, I'm guessing with just 1 card in hand that Caffrey's probably out of cyclers. So, like, this was a problem with attacking and cycling the way he did. He could have cycled out his cartographer on that attack when it got blocked and gotten back the land. That might have been the error that gave Robert a chance.
Robert's still very much on the back foot at 4 life here.
It's true. But I have to assume that Caffrey's hand is pretty blank right now. I mean, was blank. He just drew a card, so we'll see. But yeah, man, this is I based on how this game started, I didn't feel like didn't think I would feel this much tension, but I really am. Like, this is exciting.
It is. Oh, we didn't. I just keep staring at that fourth counter spell on top there.
I know that was an unreal thing. Well, and the fact that he looked through all his cards too, I was like, is he just messing with Caffrey? Is it just a way to like make him sweat and then, you know, kind of scoop? But no, he had it. Yeah, so I think if you have the cycler here, it doesn't do you any good to cycle before combat and try and take out the Lynn City because he can just get another rebel, right? So I think,
yeah. So especially
go
considering that he went down to 2, I would expect you want to do your slides kind of as late as possible. Okay, here we have another plow under.
And again,
it's going to be absorb. Gaining life, very relevant here.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, do you even care if he's not getting another rebel? But because it gains 3 life, man, I wonder if his hand has just all been counterspells this whole game. Counterspells and absorbs. And like, I mean, it kind of has to have been based on the way that this is played out.
He went down to 5. You know, I guess you do get to London it, so you can sculpt it as best you can.
Yeah. Interesting. Man, I really wanted one of those. Like, the plow under really would have been brutal.
Yeah. And a lot of things would have been brutal. I think the first Exalted Angel got counterspelled. The first counterspell.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, Caffrey really has, I mean, as you were saying in the previous game, like, this is a kind of a counterspells versus bombs scenario, and he really just has had all those counters, but still, Caffrey has been chipping in, and at some point, presumably, he will draw another cycler. And I think at that point, that's where the game gets like real awkward. Because you don't run out at that point, right? Like you can keep going. So it looks like we went to damage.
Yeah, so because the cartographer gets the cycling lines.
Yeah, and it gets and you can just keep going. And at that point, you're just drawing extra cards, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, we'll see. I mean, the best creature. Oh man, actually,
yeah,
we might see Defiant Vanguard. If you're going to fetch a creature on the end step here, which I think is probably Robert's, plan, the most likely card is Defiant Vanguard to get. And that's a pretty good one. That really kind of ends all the combat unless Caffrey starts to draw a cycler. So we'll see. I think we're just still in Caffrey's second main now, so I'm interested in kind of what they're thinking about. Maybe Caffrey is thinking through all the possible rebels that could be grabbed here. Ooh, the Disenchant, not where I thought we were going, but very, very good here. Is that a cycled land? It is.
Yeah.
And this is on the end step, which is a little bit interesting. And
it was the cartographer.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think I might have cycled the cartographer. I mean, after combat or in the middle of combat, I might have cycled that land just to set up cartographer coming back into the end step. But
and we still get to get a sergeant. That's not bad either.
Lincivi, so good. It's amazing that was the only card that mattered in in Mercadian Masks block constructed and subsequently banned. It was like that and Magetta the Lion were the cards that mattered.
Yeah. The creatures are so tiny overall.
It's true. Magetta, though, is a card I wish saw a little bit more play. That's a really cool one. In the end step.
Yeah,
he's cycling.
End step cycle.
Yeah. Seems right. I think you're probably just digging into another one of your big swings here. Trying to find I think he's out of Swords to Plowshares. Maybe trying to find the Anarchist into the Plow Under.
That would be
or
spicy.
into Wrath of God.
Well,
That is good.
forces another counterspell. It's about as good as you can do.
I think so. I mean, yeah, if he has another... At this point, too, Robert's down to 2 absorbs total counter-wise in his deck, right? Like, he can't have sided any more in that are relevant. Yeah, this is coming down to the wire. Oh,
here we go.
Is that the Astral Slide?
Yeah, we got another slide. Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, I mean, that is the thing about these slide decks, right? If you're not drawing cyclers, what are you drawing? But Robert's finally gotten his 4th land out, and at 4, he has the option to go Swords plus 3-drop. He has another Disenchant plus Whip Quarter. Like, this is where it starts to, even at just 4 mana, it starts to be really interesting what he can grab. Like, on the last turn, yeah, he had Disenchant plus Ramosan Sergeant, which is fine. I mean, that's not, he added to the board and removed a thing. But now, I mean, he can start to actually add things that tangle with those Cartographers while still taking game actions.
Indeed. But he has 2 cards in hand. We don't know how relevant they are. There we go. Dismantling Blow.
Was that also in a... Wait, I'm so confused.
Yeah, so that he did that on his turn so that there can be slide shenanigans, I guess.
Yeah, I thought the Lin City was tapped as though it attacked, but
that was a mistake and it was put back, I believe.
Okay. That was the part I was confused about. Like, they both untapped for a second.
Yeah, we have another slide.
Here's the 3rd Astral Slide.
Yeah, what else can you draw?
Yeah. If you're going to draw all the counterspells in your deck, darn it, I'm going to draw the Astral Slides.
Eric complaining loudly about what we just talked about. Like, finally, I deserve this after all this time.
Oh, man. Yeah, this has been a great game. I really didn't think it was going to be.
Why won't you die already?
After that double mull and the really tough getting stuck on lands, this game has been really good.
Yeah.
And I do think Cartographer, as much as we were just talking about Eternal Witness, it's been really good in this game. Eternal Witness getting back like a Decree or a Croson Tusker might be a little better, but just damage on the stack, cycle me out. Oh, oh, that's such an awesome play. Yeah, there's the double block, damage on the stack, cycle out my guy is very good. There's a lot happening.
Yeah. So it sounds like the Sergeant's going to die. The Cartographer's going out.
Yeah, and then I think they're just going to end step after the Croson Tusker cycle resolves, it seems like. Back down to 4. Whew. What a game.
What a game.
And yeah, he's still got to draw his card. And I think he's got to get his land back from Cartographer, too. There's like 4 triggers that happened.
Well, the Cartographer's going to come back on the end step, I think.
Well, I think it's back now. I think he probably searched end step, was my impression. Since it's untapped and flipped up now. Oh, I guess he's doing it now. He just never kind of flipped it upside down because they were figuring that all out. Whew. Man, I think what Caffrey's really a little salty about is he's like, man, if I had 2 Astral Slides in play when this all happened, it would have been insane.
Was he searching up a secluded step, or
no? That was his graveyard.
Okay, that was the getting back from the Cartographer. Great.
Oh, and he still in end step cycled again, to lock the Lin Civi until Robert's end step and take away its ability to search, which does simplify combat a little bit for him. He doesn't have to worry as much about the Defiant Vanguard and some of the other stuff. There's the 20-second disenchant. I mean, to be fair, Eric has 4 Astral Slides, and at this point, I believe Robert has 5 disenchant effects and 8 counter spells. So like him being able to do that multiple times isn't that out of order.
It does feel timely though.
It does.
Eric's posturing makes me think he has something else to play.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what the most devastating thing right here would be. I don't know that you'd play it on your own turn, but I feel like a decree for like
and
6 tokens.
Decree. Yeah.
Yeah. But even here, like he still gets to chip in for 2 unless he doesn't want to double block, which I'm assuming he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Trade a Sergeant for the Cartographer and 2 damage. Is this Plow Under? No, he's played all his Plow Unders.
Sounds like maybe a hard cast decree. No,
Deranged Hermit. That's basically cycling a Decree of Justice.
So this demands the Wrath, probably.
Yeah, I think if there's no Wrath here, the game probably just ends. That's so much power. He can very easily pay the Echo. Yeah. Also, did he tap 6 lands for that Deranged Hermit? I mean, not that it matters, but yeah. Looks like they're scooping it up and going to game 3. Man, what a great game. That was wildly exciting. I am very into what we just saw.
Eric's saying it was too close.
Yeah, too close for how him mulling to 5 and all that happening. I wonder, after seeing the cards that were in for Robert, I wonder if he might have shaved a Rebel or 2. Shaved like a Defiant Falcon, maybe one of the Lin Civies, and just went like to bring in some of those other cards. I guess we didn't see Meddling Mage, so maybe he just brought him.
We did see Meddling Mage.
Oh, we did. You're right. So yeah, so if he brought him, yeah, that's true. So
we didn't see Mom, so that could have been brought out.
Yeah. But I wonder in this case, because you don't really need 2 Defiant Falcons. You just want the one so that you can go all the way up the chain. But if you draw it, like, you can get Lin Civi that way. And, like, the Ramosan Sergeants, like, yeah, you want to play one on turn 1, but it's not as big a deal. So I can imagine shaving those a little bit to fit in some of the things. Because, as we saw, Disenchant was very good.
I can't imagine you need the same number of creatures in each matchup.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. And like Lin Civi, I mean, obviously in the ideal case, you have like extras to be able to protect them. But even with 2, like one, like against removal or whatever, one protects the other. And as long as you have enough mana to like shove it on the bottom of your deck, it's not really that big a deal because you can just kind of keep going.
Yeah. That being said, it seems like Eric is heavier on the tempo plays than like the removal in general. That's
true. That is true.
We saw the Plow Under attempt to be a big player.
Yeah, I mean, Wrath of God, I think, is your big fear, and nothing really solves that either way. Like having, an extra Lin Civi doesn't really fix that problem. So you kind of just have to rely on your counters to that. And honestly, I mean, the biggest play out of Caffrey's deck that I can see in general is just the big cycle Decree of Justice. That's the thing that I feel like can really swing and can't be interacted with very easily by Robert.
That definitely looks like it would be good in the later portions of game 2. In game 1, Robert had more lands than him, or about as many. So
yeah, that has to be a little atypical, right? I mean, Caffrey is running quite a few lands.
It's not what the slide player wants.
I mean, it's a little bit funny because you do play a lot of lands, but many of them are cycling lands. So you wonder how many of the cycling lands, like if you're having to put your cycling lands onto the battlefield tapped, you're not as happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
But missing land drops is bad. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I did also just notice in Caffrey's list that I didn't see before. He has both Genesis and Eternal Dragon. So with respect to like grinding out in the late game, there is definitely some grind to be had in Caffrey's deck that I just didn't kind of realize was there. No way to find the Genesis. So really just when I draw this 4/4, play it, and if it dies, I get to kind of go crazy with
Yeah.
you know, Cartographer and Anarchist and Exalted Angel or whatever. It's interesting. I like it, but it's interesting.
It almost feels like there should be like a survival to get the chain of one-ups going.
Yeah, just one survival and one squee to really like put it all together.
Yeah, but the theme seems to be more maximizing slide than any other shenanigans.
I think a sub theme might be cards Eric likes a lot. I know Genesis is one of his favorites from this from middle school. He's a big proponent of the rock with like Genesis being your main advantage engine. Also, like just going crazy with Genesis and Ravenous Bailoff.
Yeah, he tries that with Vora Stronghold too. Yep.
All just great cards. Oh, and here's the blisteringly fast start from Robert this time. But this time he does get to stay on 7, so I'm sure he's happier.
Yeah, secretly the best turn 1 play too.
Yeah. No, very, very good to have like basically guaranteed having easy mana for most of the rest of the game.
Yeah.
It is a pretty like blue intensive list for having, you know, as many white creatures as it does. Like Counterspell and Absorb are both double blue spells, but as you said, he's basically fixed for that for the game. And yeah, Lin Civvy double white, Whip Quarters double white. Yeah, it's interesting to me. I would imagine the number of games, if he has all of his Sergeants and all of his Defiant Falcons in play, where he does not play a Rebel on turn 1 or 2, has to be pretty low. Oh man, and there's the turn 2 Astral Slide out of Caffrey, but of course. Oh,
Never saying almost like it's bait, or is it? Oh, man.
I mean, you have to assume, as always,
if you have it, you definitely do it.
Well, it depends, right? So if you have a disenchant, do you?
Yeah. Well, it's fine. Might be the dismantling blow replay, which is a little awkward because, well, I guess it's just going to stick.
I mean, at this moment, there's nothing for Astral Slide to do, right? So, like, it's not the end of the world. Also, Caffrey played a mountain on turn 2, which can sometimes indicate a little bit of awkwardness about your mana base. I think there is one mountain in his deck, and it's almost, or it is entirely for the Singleton Anarchist. So I wonder. Oh, there's the Sterling Grove. He's pretty content about that one. I think he's hovering it onto the stack there.
Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, I think that's a pretty good turn 2 into turn 3 sequence for Caffrey. I mean, you have to counter it, right? Because if you're or disenchant the Astral Slide now.
Yeah, if you ever want to, well, if you're on the disenchant plan, you might end up just disenchanting the Grove and then the other stuff. Yeah,
the tough part about that though is like if your hand
if you have counterspell 1 disenchant, then you kind of have to do it this way.
Mm-hmm. And even if you have two disenchants, it's a little bit awkward, right? So you like go to disenchant the Sterling Grove, and they just say, "Okay, sack it." Like search for another Astral Slide, maybe.
Yeah, but then you're just setting yourself up to get plow undered.
Always the fear.
Or maybe not. I don't know. You in Magic, you sometimes have to pick what you want to be afraid of.
True. That's a very useful skill to learn. When should I be afraid of what?
It's better than being afraid of everything.
It's true. Interestingly, I think that is all of the lands in play that Wooded Foothills can possibly fetch in Caffrey's deck. So hopefully he doesn't draw the other Wooded Foothills here.
Is that so? I guess I kind of assumed that. Yeah, you're right. Only the 3 basics. I kind of thought that Wooded Foothills cycling would be a little bigger, but not really.
Yeah. I mean, so my guess is that Caffrey is having a little bit of mana problems. I mean, his bird is definitely helping, but cycling when he did implies to me that that he was looking for something off the top. Maybe that's a cartographer.
Okay, this fixes mana problems.
It does. Lets him, yeah, Croson Tusker just doing all the work. Oh, and tapped his bird so that he could cycle it out and have more mana. That seems pretty good.
Yep.
I assume he did that. I guess it's a May. He might not have. Nope, he did. Love it. Where'd that planes come from? Oh. Yeah, so the question I have is there any way to kind of put the screws in the end step here to Robert? Fetching end step, is that dismantling blow I feel coming? Or another disenchant?
Possibly.
Interestingly, if he wants to do that before Caffrey can cycle his Ramosin Sergeant again, he has to do it in the second main phase.
Yeah, I was fantasizing about Orange Chant, so there's a deep load. Yeah. Still never been kicked.
Yeah. And he gets to start his turn now with the with the Ramosin Sergeant in play, which is bad for Caffrey, I guess, obviously. So at this point, whip quarter. At this point, I wonder what your ideal sequence is if you're Caffrey. What gets you out of this? Is it just try and slam Deranged Hermit?
Was my first thought.
It does solve a fair amount of problems. It does feel, though, kind of that dismantling blow really was a big swing in terms of where the advantage bar would be going.
Right. And the whip quarter eliminates a lot of the single target threats. Like, there we go.
there's that Deranged Hermit.
Yeah. Better than, say, an Exalted Angel, if it sticks.
You put down those cards pretty quickly. It looked to me like it's going to resolve.
Yeah.
And even if he deals
he's
with
asking how many tokens.
Yes. All right. The game's back at interesting. It's still tough. I feel like I don't know at this point who is favored, which is not a thing you often say when someone slams a Deranged Hermit. But yeah, I mean, he's going to get another Rebel, presumably a Whip Quarter. Maybe Defiant Falcon so you can go up the chain. I don't know if you want to get another Whip Quarter so you can like have 2/2s to fight the opposing 2/2s, or if it's better to just get Defiant Falcon. Oh no, it looks like Whip Quarter. Yeah. Yeah, this will be an interesting one to see how this goes. If Caffrey though ever draws another Astral Slide and manages to get it in play, it is like that's where Deranged Hermit gets entirely bonkers. When you're just like,
right.
Yeah.
So we know the next turn is a Siesta. But then after that, Eric has a lot of mana and he'll have about 5-ish cards to work with. Plus the Hermit.
Yeah. And yeah, I assume he just pays the upkeep kind of immediately here. Maybe he lets it go. I mean,
it's just a question, do you want to crack the fetch now or later?
Yeah.
Which I would assume this is correct.
Yeah, he might be worried about this coming down to the wire with respect to life total too, which like at this point it kind of feels a little bit like a race. Man. Yeah, Deranged Hermit. I will gladly play 10 mana for this 9 power across 5 creatures. This is where if he had like a Singleton Gaze Cradle, it would be absurd, but
yeah.
Like slam Slam Astral Slide plus cycle a Tranquil Thicket or something.
That's basically what a lot of my decks are now. It's like jamming Cradle and Hermit into
all the things.
green red decks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the elf decks that can do that with Symbiote, Werewood Symbiote to bounce the Deranged Hermit are the ones that are really like going ham. Ooh.
Yeah, it's one of their best cards. But it can be supplementary to anything. So
that sword was very good.
Okay. In mid-combat, so 2 squirrels go down for nothing, it seems.
Well, and it looks like he only has 1 squirrel left, so I wonder if the Ramosin Sergeant blocked 2. Like, blocked also. Doesn't look like it. So he should have 2 tokens, I think. Maybe they're just stacked or whatever. But, yeah, that's a pretty rough Swords to Plowshares. Looks like he is casting
Falcon's
a Swords
getting
of his...
plowed.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that breaks up the Linsivy for another turn. But yeah, that is a rough one.
Yeah.
With Hermit out, it does start to get pretty tough. The rest of the sort of big creature options are just not as intimidating to the Rebel plan. Deranged Hermit is kind of the only way to keep up in terms of board presence with just this inevitable grind of creature turn after turn.
Yeah. One thing I was just thinking about, if he actually draws Genesis, how does he get in the graveyard?
Oh, I think he just plays it and blocks.
Okay.
Yeah, so against this deck, it would have to be blocking that Joval Queen or whatever. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe he's not as concerned about Genesis in this matchup. Although, man, Genesis bringing back Krosan Tusker to really get the grind going is a pretty funny one.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I can think of combinations of cards that would be good, but a lot of them are like 3 or more cards.
I mean, I think like starting off here with a Wrath of God would be quite good.
Mm-hmm.
Guessing he doesn't have one since he just slammed a Birds of Paradise onto the table.
And also because of the swords, that told me there was no Wrath.
Yeah. Oh. So he did have the slide ready to go. Ooh.
Yeah.
Makes that Deranged Hermit all the
I mean,
of course he has a counter spell.
Yeah.
That's how this matchup plays out. But it makes it all the sharper. Another twist of the knife that counterspell is available for the Astral Slide. I think I could be wrong here. Like I said, Wrath of God is a big game still. But outside of being able to cast Wrath in the next turn or two, I think probably it's curtains for Caffrey. Robert is down to just 1 card, so like he can probably resolve some stuff, but this is a pretty rough spot.
So you're playing in the other match?
I'm not. It's a different Jake.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Though that list is sweet also, and I'm excited to get a look at it or to get it on screen here. But no, I lost this week. I'm 1-1.
Okay.
Again, lost to a deck that I had never really seen before. It was counter burn with Shard Phoenix and Squeeze. I feel like if we could hear Caffrey's commentary right now, it would be great.
What did the Squeeze do in that deck? Was it a Compulsion?
Compulsion and Forbid.
Nice, yeah.
And he also had Frantic Searches. So his plan in that match was to, I don't want to give away all his tech, but Intuition for Squee and then set up various card advantage engines with it. And yeah, he just annihilated me.
I think Compulsion's a really cool card. I'm not sure what else to do with it besides the Squeeze stuff. But
yeah, I mean, I think that it's cool there, but I also was really impressed by Frantic Search in that context. Like once you get, this is a thing that can turn the tides if Robert is low on counter spells or is low on removal, which it looks like he does not have a counter spell the way he tapped just there.
Mm-hmm.
So Exalted Angels might be a big game here. I mean, Robert has blockers, infinite blockers.
The Whip Quarter can tap it, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the Whip Quarter tapping it is quite good.
Yeah, that's kind of what I assumed would be the main obstacle to plans like this or Eternal Dragon or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's a really solid point. I was getting all excited because the Whip Quarters have been attacking. I was like, oh, they're busy attacking, but surely they will just tap that.
They remember how to whip
he had
and
the swords
cord.
anyway, of course.
Of course.
Robert has been kind of a master of just having a handful of all of the right things.
He had about as many right things as you could have in game 2.
That's true. Yeah, it didn't do. I mean, for someone who had only 5 cards at the start of the game,
Mm-hmm.
he had a whole lot of the right cards.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the other reason that the Whip Quarters off the Ramosin Sergeant is like a nice little package. Like, this is a pretty significant amount of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Just coming in with 2/2s, just beating down.
I'd imagine some of the awkward hands for Robert are the ones where you just keep drawing all your random rebels.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if this is a deck where you would really love to have like a Brainstorm or even Scroll Rack to just put him back so that you're like constantly getting other cards if you draw your rebels.
Scroll Rack's a really interesting idea.
Yeah. There's
also Latinum's Legacy is like not a bad card.
Yeah, I like Latinum's Legacy for that purpose too. Yeah, I have in that deck I was talking about that's white and black. I have a Scroll Rack and a little Enlightened Tutor package that kind of plays together. But I don't know. I mean, the other thing in Robert's version here, like, okay, you draw some extra rebels. It doesn't hurt you to hold them, and most of them are cheap enough. It only really hurts if you like draw your Joval Queen or your Sky Marshal. Like most of the rest of them, in fact, they do max out at 3 mana.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you could still manage them as long as you're making your land drops, and it is cheaper than recruiting with like non-land civvy things. So it's not the worst.
Right. Yeah, it's just a little less powerful than the average draw. But Eric's thinking, he's humming.
My guess here from Caffrey is he is thinking about whether or not he should concede.
He's going to try to cast something for 5 mana. It's a Plow Under.
That'll show him. Fetch your rebels now. I mean, surely you just let this resolve, right? Like, what do you care?
Well, your deck's a little bigger when you're going to search for your rebels.
I mean, I guess it takes him off of white. That is relevant. It, especially with respect to the Whip Quarters that we were talking about. But like, yeah, ultimately, he just neglects to search and just beats down. Like, I think this is not a big game here. I think he's debating whether to block because I think this is an attack for 5 and he's at 10. So it puts him, if he blocks, it puts him in a slightly better position, gives him one more turn. And Robert one less turn to draw that, the swords or whatever. Although he does have Birds of Paradise to block with as well. And he has a whole lot of mana. Yeah, what are you hoping to draw here?
Decree, maybe?
Yeah. Even Decree, though, is a little bit rough against the number, like the Whip Quarters and stuff.
We might do it during their combat.
That's true. Yeah, post-attackers or whatever. Plow Under number 2? Oh, Anarchist. Get that Plow Under right back. That's awesome. I mean, it's also a 2/2, which is like kind of relevant here, but he's going to grab the Ramosin Scar Marshal.
There's a lot of good sorceries in the format that it could get instead
of the Plow Under. I mean, in this instance, like, it is relevant, right? Like, he did.
I understand why he's playing those 2 cards. It's just in this context, it's a little.
It's a little anemic.
Yeah.
I mean, he did manage to shuffle away a white source there. He got it going.
If my opponent was actually like land shaky and I got to double plow under them and like tap, what is it, 9 or whatever to anarchist plow under them the second time, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, it's the small things.
Yeah.
Like, I might lose this game, but I'm going to plow under you twice. Is a pretty nice feeling. I assume we're going to have a chump block with a bird here on that Ramosan Sky Marshal and a block of one of the whip quarters. Seems good.
In the previous league, I was playing Madness against Pox, and I basically got to the point where I just kept like playing Root Wallas in response to Pox, and I let like 3 Pox and 4 hymns resolve over the course of an entire game.
Nice.
And grinded it out.
Yeah, no, that's pretty sweet. So we had a chump block there, or like a second chump block on the other flyer, I think, or on a 2/2, maybe more likely. It's a little bit odd. I kind of expected him to only chump the Ramosan Sergeant and maybe try to set up a turn where he plow undered first and then tried to Wrath. But
I was wondering if you have a Wrath, maybe you chump in the Wrath. But.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. But man, those 3 cards in Robert's hand sure are intimidating.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
It's true. Yeah, here against Robert always has it. Here, wait. So
Cartographer.
Sure.
Storm count 1.
I mean, he's got to be like, yeah, I don't care about that. Like, you have to not care about the Cartographer, right? Like, there's no. He's at 6. You get to get your whip quarter back with the mana you have up right now, if you so choose. I feel like Caffrey may have found the Wrath, but it's just like there's no way I'm going to get him to.
Oh, he passed the turn, so.
Yeah. So I think there are 2 lines you can take here if you're Robert. You have the option to just get your whip quarter, put it on the bottom, and then search for it, or you can potentially just search for like a Ramosan Sergeant and another 2-drop. But yeah, it looks like he went for the Lin Civi, put on the bottom, and then search for it. Which seems pretty good, right? I mean, so Caffrey's at 6. He has 3, 4, 5, 6 power on the board after he taps down both those things with a Ramosan Sergeant. You can just go for it.
That's Xyzes, yeah.
Or you can just attack with all of it, honestly. Like, you can attack with both Ramosan Sergeant or both whip quarters and everything else. Maybe leave back Lin Civi and just say, like,
I like that better.
I'll trade and possibly kill you anyway. Yeah, just jam. I'm a little wary of jamming with Lin Civi here just because. So let's think this through. 3, 4.
Well, it just prevents you from searching, I guess. I don't think it can actually die.
I mean, so right here, Caffrey goes to 1 based on like what has happened, although he did just tap his white mana, or one of his white mana. I was thinking like a Swords to Plowshares is really awkward because it does set you up to like potentially lose your Lin Civi. And then like that was just what I was thinking about was the.
Yeah, but I think we're at the point where you can lose the queen and win with all your pawns.
Yeah, it really depends a little bit if he has that counterspell in his hand. That's what I was thinking about. Like, is there a counterspell and does Caffrey have the Wrath? I think it's likely that he has a counterspell, and I think it's not super likely that Caffrey has the Wrath, but yeah he didn't. Still, good games.
Still had all Ds.
You didn't have double counter up, though, because of that critical plow under turn.
Yeah.
Good games, though. Honestly, like, as much as it was a rough spot there at the end for Caffrey, those were really interesting. There's a lot going on, like cool matchup. I think that's a neat set of games. I think maybe there are some sideboard adjustments for Caffrey's deck that could make this a lot closer. Little curse totem action. But no, great games, and I think great job by both of them. Like I said, I love to see all these cool ideas that not everyone else is doing, and just brought in the Stone Groves there. So from Caffrey, he was not interested in the Orm's Chance. It's interesting.
It's a little rough that they are card disadvantage compared to like Abeyance.
Yeah,
I would
that's
be
true.
very happy bringing an Abeyance for.
Yeah, or Orm's Chant both doesn't stop the Rebel activation and doesn't draw you a card. It does, however, I mean, in one of those turns, like in your, doing that in his upkeep and turning off attacks for a turn might have been relevant. Like that kind of time walk can be good.
Yeah. I ended up playing Abeyances, one, because I like it, and two, because I have a bunch of them, especially Gold Border. And Chants are expensive now, I think.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Abeyance is expensive, isn't it? I don't know. I
think it did get up there at some point, but I got the Gold Borders were $1 for a while.
Yeah, I was gonna say Magic cards are just too expensive now, is what I've really found. Oh yeah, the Weatherlight Abeyance is $33. Jeez. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so we finished up our first match. We had Counter Rebels taking it over Slide, and we're going to go to a little break between matches, and then we'll be back.
Bring you some more awesome action from these crazy middle school decks.
there's some pretty big differences. One of these decks is trying to go as fast as possible, and the other one is willing to take its time.
It's true, and luckily for the one that's trying to take its time, it has some ways to interact with the deck that's trying to go as fast as possible. So on the one side, we have a pretty cool take on a Psychatog list. So this is a Psychatog list that also runs 4 Squee Goblin Nabob and some zombie infestations to do some work for it. So I think that's kind of a fun, like a grindy way to utilize your hand and turn it into damage, and Psychatog the kind of best way to ever do that. But alongside that, it has a fair amount of permissions and discards and things to interact. On the other side, we have basically the all-in 100%. This is what I'm doing. Blue-black dragon deck, and I've seen a couple places where dragon has been sort of shoved in as an extra thing, or some reanimator decks that are like, I play 1 dragon and I can entomb for it and do the thing if I need to, draw the game or whatever. This deck is not about that life. It's running 4 Entomb and 4 Intuition. It is saying, put these things in the yard and let me do the combo, which is kind of cool. So I'm kind of interested to see how this plays out. I feel like dragon can be a little bit tough in a world where Swords to Plowshares is legal, Force of Will is legal, and you don't have Bazaar. But I don't know. This looks like a pretty streamlined list. I'm excited to see, and it has some pretty good sideboard cards to fight against the interaction on the other side. So yeah, I'm excited. I think this will be a fun one.
Yeah, me too. There's some things that seem awkward on paper, but maybe they're fine. Like Ancient Tomb dealing you damage, so you can't tap it infinitely, but maybe that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think as long as you have a land that produces colored mana, and even then, yeah, a land that doesn't deal you damage to produce mana, you're okay if you're going infinite in this deck, because like 1 land is sufficient. So yeah, if you go off and your only mana source is Ancient Tomb, that can be a problem for sure. But otherwise, I think you're okay, and it's pretty. We don't see any like Lotus Petals in here or anything, so I think the chances of that happening are relatively low. There is a Gemstone Mine, so I guess there's an awkward situation where you have Ancient Tomb and Gemstone Mine. You use the last counter on your Gemstone Mine, sacrificing it, and an Ancient Tomb to animate that, and then you can't make enough mana to kill your opponent. But outside of that, it's pretty tough to get in that scenario.
Yeah, and the numbers line up pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's also interesting to see a deck like this. So it's 2 colors. As far as there is a tiny white splash in the sideboard, but for the most part it's purely blue-black. But it is running 4 Underground River, 4 Polluted Delta, 3 Undiscovered Paradise, and 4 Gemstone Mine. So a lot of dual lands, and it's off to the races with a turn 1 Careful Study, which is actually. I said that it was off to the races with a turn 1 Careful Study, but since both decks are playing that card, I'm not sure.
Oh, look at what we have here. Is the entire deck in... Oh, no, it's not. I thought the deck might have been in top loaders, but they're just small proxies.
Yeah, they're just small proxies. Okay. So that's actually our Psychatog list that went the initial turn 1 Careful Study, but it was answered quite quickly by a Careful Study on the other side. Putting a dragon into the yard. Whew. I didn't really catch the set. Oh, is that a Underground River as the second card? Yeah. Oh boy. Well, so let's go ahead.
Yeah, that's not enough by itself, but it wins with many other cards if you animate it.
Yeah, and in this case, there's a couple options for the dragon list to kind of go off, even if it doesn't have the card in its yard. It has access to Whispers of the Muse as a way to draw its deck with its infinite mana. It has Entomb and Intuition that it can have in hand for the Ambassador Liquatus, which is the other creature, if it doesn't have it to start already in the graveyard when it goes off. So it has a fair amount of weight, and a Frantic Search, though that's a scarier proposition. To cast a Frantic Search kind of in the middle and hope you hit one of those other cards. And also it does have access to a Cunning Wish for Stroke of Genius. So it has a fair amount of ways to win out with that dragon combo if it needs to, even if it doesn't have the Liquatus in the yard already.
Yeah, without Liquatus, Whisper's probably the most common. But we see the one of Cunning Wish. I thought it was kind of silly because it's like, how often are you actually going to go get a utility spell? But
I wonder if he's just grabbing Force of Will here. Yeah.
Sure.
Oh my. I mean, this might be the. So that was on.
Yeah. So there's only one Cunning Wish in this deck.
Yeah, and so I wonder if his turn 3 play is just Animate Dead, and I have Force of Will backup, and maybe the Whispers of the Muse.
That's what I'm expecting.
Or I guess he could have Entomb also at this point, or Intuition too. So yeah, there's a lot of options, but man, that sure looked good here. If this is a turn 2 Animate Dead with protection and the winning spell in hand.
Mm-hmm. It could be a 3-mana reanimation spell, if there's any of those.
Does he run? It looks like he's just running Animate Dead and Dance of the Dead. There's no Necromancy. But no, this is very exciting. I'm all in. This is great.
Yeah. Something's gonna happen soon.
Yeah. The only thing that worries me a little bit is that when your Psychatog opponent casts a fixing spell on turn 1 and then passes without doing anything else. Yeah, so we're leading off with a careful study here, which implies to me that he does not have the Animate Dead yet, or maybe doesn't have the win condition. Another Underground River and a Gemstone Mine. So maybe a little flooded. I was very excited for this quick win, but it looks like we're going to give the Psychatog deck a little bit more time. The tough part about that is, as we were saying, there's a fair amount of counter spells in this deck.
Yeah, and like three mana is usually one counter spell, but 4 mana can easily represent 2.
Yeah. So he's going for the Intuition here. You'd think for AK, not in this Psychatog list, I would guess that we are going to get 3 Squeak Goblin Nabods right now. Or maybe, 3 protection or, 3 disruption spells if that's if he's feeling light on those, like maybe you get, counter spells and duresses or something. But I kind of hope it's for 3 Squee, to be honest. Oh, 3 duress. That's a totally reasonable play. That does represent kind of, if I have a counter spell and even if I don't have the 4th land, I get to play 2 disruption spells on my in between our 2 turns, which is, a little bit tougher for the dragon deck to compete with.
Yeah. It's not usually what you think you're going to be doing with Intuition, but you do what you got to do.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need a Demonic Tutor.
Yeah.
Oh, an Entomb in response. You can't counter here, right? Like, even if you have it, it feels very tough to try and cast a counter spell. Especially not knowing the list. Like, he wished for that 1 Cunning Wish, but like, I wonder if his hand is just like 2 Animate. Like, 2 times Animate Dead in a blue card, that's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah. That would be spicy.
Although I guess if that's your hand, do you just try and go off on your own turn?
Well.
Oh, okay. Frantic Search, Intuition, Force of Will. So just 3 blue cards, which is good. I think you, depending on your hand.
Intuition, I would guess.
Well, it depends a little bit, right? So if you have a counter spell, you might take the Force of Will. Because then if he casts the Intuition for Animate Deads, you get a bunch of Animate Deads out of the deck and you can just counter it. I think, honestly, it might be a signal that he doesn't have as strong a hand with respect to counter spells to take the Intuition here. Because there are a lot of Animate. He doesn't know that the complete contents of his deck, but I bet he can guess that there are a fair amount of Animate Deads available. And with a Frantic Search in play, he gets to generate mana off that. So this actually might be, this feels
Yeah,
a
let's
little
get
risky.
the double black.
Well, you can use Frantic Search to make an extra black.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. Man, if there is a time, I feel like you have to cast Frantic Search here. If you don't, like, giving your opponent extra turns with Compulsion in play feels like a mistake over time. And looks like he's doing the play that we talked about, casting the Frantic Search and floating in black. The only thing that's rough about this is now you're kind of off the Force of Will plan. You're going down far enough on cards that you can't have blue card plus Force of Will plus a animate spell. Another dragon and an entomb. It is also tough, I'll mention. We do have mana burn here in middle school, so that one black mana floating isn't completely free.
We're still digging.
Yeah. I mean, this is a lot of cards he's going to be able to see on this turn, right? This is 5 new cards he didn't see before.
You're only keeping what, 1?
Yeah, you only get to keep 1. So if this is the Animate Dead, which it looks like it is, or Dance of the Dead, we kind of need a Force of Will from the opponent or the game ends.
We're getting an and clarification on what the card does.
I'll point out, I asked the name of this deck list, this dragon deck list is 104.4b. Apparently those are the rules that they're the specific rule that cites if you get into an infinite loop and can't exit it, which is not the case here. He has Ambassador Aquatis in the yard, but the game ends in a draw. So I suspect that Ty is pretty familiar with the rules around Dragon and how it works.
It's not a good idea to play this deck if you don't.
True.
Let's see what happens.
Is there a card?
It's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like I don't think there's an out for
the Laquatus happening.
Yeah, for the Laquatus happening, making infinite mana and killing Jake here.
Yeah, I think Jake's just said.
Yeah, I believe he doesn't have any cards that interact with this. And he's scooping it up. Yeah, I think that Compulsion might have been a little greedy, to be honest.
Yeah, but maybe that was the only play his hand gave him. I'm not sure.
It's possible. It is
There was the intuition for the duress, though, so I guess maybe he didn't think that the Frantic Search would lead to a kill.
Yeah, but so basically like that line of playing that Compulsion, I think makes sense if he doesn't have a counterspell.
Yeah.
If he doesn't have another way and he just says, well, this duress has to be good enough and that's what I have. Like there's kind of no other way around it. What does so I'm looking at their deck list now and thinking about sideboarding a little bit, but I'm trying to remember, do you know what Turbulent Dreams does? That's one of his main deck cards. It's a 1 of, and I don't remember what that one is. I know it's one of the discard cards to do something. Oh, wow.
So it is blue as an sorcery, as an additional cost to play Turbulent Dreams. Discard X cards from your hand and return X non-land permanents to their owner's hands.
So that can break up the combo. That can leave the dragon player with no permanents in play if you have blue up. That's a good thing to note.
Wait, what? Well, it's a sorcery.
Oh, it's a sorcery. I thought it was an instant. Goodness. Well, never mind. Get that thing out of here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah,
I think it's like an upheaval type.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. An upheaval that doesn't bounce your Tog.
Or any lands, though? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I mean, it's cheap. It's good to get blockers out of the way. Like, I don't think it's a bad card, but in this matchup, it's not particularly important. So I think that's an easy one to cut, and as well as the Sickening Dreams and the Smothers, I don't think do anything.
Croesus' I have to look it up.
Croesus' Charm, I believe one of its modes is counter.
No, it's bounce a permanent. That is relevant with the animate, I believe.
Or destroy target non-black creature. So 2 of those are relevant, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we keep in the Croesus's charm. Man, this is the most I've had to look up cards in a deck in a little while. Um, and what else does he have to bring in? So he has Chain of Vapor out of the sideboard, which is super relevant. Snuff Out, which definitely is relevant. And Phyrexian Furnace, potentially. It feels a little slow versus the Dragon deck, but there are times when it can be good. I guess he doesn't have Necromancy, so there's no way to kind of instant speed reanimate in response to a Phyrexian Furnace. So we probably do, like, it probably does make sense to bring those in. I think that's where I would go. Snuff Out, Furnace, and Chain of Vapor. Oh, and probably the Cabal Therapy as well. You want to have as much discard for the anime spells as you can with all the duresses. On the other side, in the Dragon list, for Ty, there are some defense grids, which I think are A+. And there's a one of the Enlightened Tutor that I don't fully understand. I mean, it gets Animate Dead and it gets defense grid, so maybe it's just good enough as like a fifth way to search up the defense grid, and or in a pinch, or be an Animate Dead. But I don't know. It feels a little odd to me off of 7 sources, but
yeah, it can set up some lines, but it's card disadvantage. Not good in a grindy game, but
I suppose
you're
that's
hoping
part
to
of
avoid
his.
that.
That's part of his Cunning Wish package. So he probably doesn't bring that in ever. And he just, if the situation comes up, it's a way to Cunning Wish for an animate effect if you need it. That's pretty good. And otherwise you can Cunning Wish for the Mystical Tutor to get your Entomb, to get the Dragon in the yard. So that's kind of cool. I mean, they're long lines, but there are lines both ways. I kind of like the Singleton Cunning Wish. That's a neat little package. But yeah, I suspect that he's bringing.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, why doesn't he play more?
Yeah, true. It is. I mean, it's a really good card if you're going off. It might be better than Whispers of the Muse. I am.
Maybe there's the right mix is 3/2. Maybe I'm talking out of my butt because I haven't played the deck yet.
I also wonder, what do you cut for defense grids? Is it just a swap for the duresses, or I mean, is there a weakest draw spell, or maybe intuition? I don't know.
Duress clears the way of counters, so that's nice.
I don't think you want to shave any of your combo pieces ever. And really, the whole rest of the deck is draw spells, tutors, and those duresses, and I guess the Cunning Wish. But
I don't know. It depends. Maybe if you want to play slower, then you could cut Careful Studies and Frantic Searches.
That's true. Yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, I'm sure he has a plan. It looks like a very deliberate sideboard, right?
Yeah.
Snaps, Null Rods, and Defense Grids are all great.
I always wish I knew how to sideboard these kinds of decks.
Oh yeah, I think it's very hard in this kind of combo deck.
I think it's the most hard thing to do with the deck. Yeah.
But yeah, after thinking that it might be not super favored in the matchup, it really looked good there. I mean, he did all the things he wanted to do. I think he went off on turn 4. It's interesting. I know Raja from the Team Serious guys is a big proponent of various builds of Dragon.
I like his latest one.
Yeah, the mono black.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. He was playing that in the last league. I think you can go find that on the Romancing the Stones.
Yeah, so it has a backup plan of Wreck discard.
Yeah, and I believe another Spirit.
Yeah.
For beating down. So he has another Entomb target and another Spirit. And his win con, or one of his win cons, I think he has a Laquatus too, but is Curse Scroll in play with, infinite flickers and infinite mana. He was talking about how it like kind of falls under the like 4 Horsemen problem, but for most opponents, they're cool with, all right, let me roll a die 7,000 times on this random.org or whatever, and we'll if we hit.
It's actually like a number that you could realistically do.
Yeah. It's fast to pick a number, right? Like if you're just rolling a die for the cards you have, you could just keep rolling it, and every time you hit a 3, you take 2, like, or whatever it is. But it is
go get a bunch of dice.
Yeah, the thing that that's what I think he said, that he would like fill his fists, shake them, and just drop them all at once. But it is kind of cool because like Curse Scroll's already such a reasonable card that I like when the Dragon Kill, if it's going to be something that's in play, is just a reasonable card. I think in
of course it's elegant.
Yeah, in one of the cubes I saw somebody kill someone with the the swamp that drain lives for one when it comes into play, and it comes into play tapped. That was their dragon kill. I was like, that's elegant.
Well, we saw Nat Mose do that in an Eternal Masters pack draft.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, so we're back in the action here once again. A turn 1 careful study for both players. Our Tog Squee player, got the better of that. Oh, well, maybe not. I was going to say got the better of that by starting off with a Squee in his graveyard, but his opponent answers right back with a dragon on turn 1 into the yard.
Yeah.
And a Whispers of the Muse. So apparently we're not cutting any Whispers of the Muse for defense grids in this game, or not all of them anyway. Sounds like maybe he's reading Whispers of the Muse. A huge player, by the way. I mean, Whisper of the Muse was a big card when it first came out as another way for the control deck to just not do anything on your turn and then an end step if nothing happened. Much like the Rebel player, just pay 6 mana and draw a card or whatever. It was outclassed eventually, but yeah, it was a big player in its day.
You keep doing that until you draw your one of Rainbow of Freak.
Yep. Or if you're really feeling the spice, your Soldevi Digger or your Gaia's Blessing, and you just have no win con, and just shuffle your deck back, and just let your opponent deck. That was my favorite era of like control decks from Extended, where it was just like or Standard, where it was just like
it's such a jerk move.
It is like, I'm going to kill you. It's going to take 47 minutes. I'm definitely going to win, but it's going to be just horrible for you.
I mean, I used to like actually hate those kinds of players, and now it's just like, oh, you're just sick in the head.
Yeah.
Whatever. I guess we all are in a way.
I think that's a phase for a lot of people that are like trying to be good at Magic, right? We were like, oh, the blue player, like the counterspell player. I don't want to ever draw my win condition until the very end. What if I didn't run a win condition? Like,
it's not always unfounded. Like for me, my first Legacy tournament, I think it was probably my first match. I played against a mono blue prison deck that like had 1 win con in it.
Yeah,
and I was just like, so I have to either just wait here or concede. He's like, yeah.
Thankfully in this game there's some action and a thing that all like mono blue players hate to see across the board, which is a defense grid that came into play unchallenged. Interestingly, the Psychatog player did not make a token on his opponent's end step. I mean, I guess the cards in his hand must be pretty good, but he does have a squeeze.
Wait, so one of those the squeeze.
Yeah, so it's really 1 card to have a 2/2 to start pressuring your opponent, and he kind of chose not to do it. Instead, wants to use it for the careful study.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know his hand, so it's hard to say. But I like getting aggressive here. I mean, the amount of time this combo deck's going to give you is limited, and I think putting pressure on them to do things is important if you also kind of want to be able to win the game. But there's also a defense grid in play, so we're in sort of a rough spot as it is. And I don't know, outside of that Chain of Vapor we talked about bringing in, if there's a whole lot of answers to a defense grid on the board.
Yeah, I would be wanting to make zombies and race, assuming I couldn't cast anything, which is looking like it.
Yeah. And I mean, especially with that dragon already in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And yeah, not enough mana to challenge him. It looks like he's thinking about a frantic search here.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, pretty scary.
No cost other than the fact that you're going to go down a card, but you want to get cards in your graveyard in a lot of these scenarios. And man, yeah, this deck seems to flood a little bit for running only, I don't know, 7, 11, 12, like 20 lands almost on the dot.
So it's just feeling like the last game where chain could end in an animate, but
yeah, I mean, and keep in mind, like there are a lot of cards we said that could be in his hand that end the game.
I think we're hard casting a Whisper.
Oh, wow.
Well,
yeah, I mean, you can't really do it on your opponent's end step once you have the defense grid in play. So, but that's a pretty strong indication that we're not going to go to the I win phase of the game, which is good for our opposing zombie infestation player.
Yeah, it does mean we're going to the I can pay for force phase.
Well, and also there is that Crosis's Charm, right? And that one of its modes is destroy an artifact. So, and there are two of those. So it's possible that he could destroy the defense grid at some point here. Oh, and at 3 mana, maybe that's what we're gonna see. Yeah. Crosis's Charm
seems fine.
This card actually seems pretty good to me. Like reading the modes, I mean, there's a little overlap here, right? So it's like return a permanent, destroy a creature, destroy an artifact, destroy target non-black creature. It feels like
it's sort of like screw your permanent for Grixis.
Yeah,
it's like we're gonna destroy it, and if we can't destroy it, then just get rid of it somehow.
I kind of wish the first mode was counter a non-creature spell.
Yeah.
That would make me a little bit happier about Crosis's Charm, but it's a pretty good, like, that's a pretty good charm.
Yeah, the other ones need more buffs than that.
I feel like that charm cycle was interesting because they were vastly differently powered.
Yeah.
But cool, like and I think that might have been the first time that we saw 3-color spells.
That's kind of the progression of the charms in general. Is that they're all kind of neat, and they go from fewer playables to more.
Yeah, but the disruption keeps coming. Keeps coming from Ty here. He did get his defense grid removed, but man, that duress feels really good when his opponent is tapped out. And yeah, there's the Force of Will that he was counting on to deal with the animate. Another moment where the kind of shields are down.
Mm-hmm.
And he has the Furnace too that he didn't play. He wanted to destroy the defense grid more. I'm
guessing it's between the blue cards.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it depends, right? If he has a
he takes the Force. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like in that situation I often take the other blue card.
Me too. But it's like this is the better play if you have another defense grid, probably.
Yeah, I also wonder a little bit if you take the Furnace there, because like counter spells you can beat with defense grids and duresses and stuff. The Furnace, which I assume he's going to play this turn, stops the combo in its tracks, and that is problematic. He does. I mean, Ty does have access to Null Rod on his sideboard.
Oh, the dragon was on the bottom. Oh, that's really good then.
That is really good. In fact, man, that's got to be a.
You could have ordered the careful study.
You could have ordered it differently. That's one that he probably doesn't make that mistake again after this instance. Not a thing I would have thought of, but I'm also not a dragon player. Totally relevant, man. Phyrexian Furnace, what a beating.
I've probably done it correctly on accident with Blue-Black Reanimator. I'd like to think so. I didn't think of that about that when we were duressing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I definitely would have taken Phyrexian Furnace realizing that. His opponent realized it and was very excited. The bottom card. Ugh. I'm glad they don't print cards like this anymore. Order of your graveyard is the one thing that I am that I dislike about the era of middle school. Basically everything else about it I approve of.
I could do without it.
But yeah, having to have your graveyard in a specific order is irritating. A thing that I have liked in some of the lists that I've seen that do care about that is if you play like Hermit Druid, you get to pick for yourself. I'm sort of confused about what just happened. What card is in play? Oh, that's the token. Yeah, that's the zombie token.
We made a zombie.
Sorry. Yeah, I thought for some reason, because he straightened his graveyard, that it was like a proxy for Psychatog or something, and I was very confused. But no, they're the zombie tokens. And now he is down in that, he's with that beatdown plan that we were talking about, including throwing another Phyrexian Furnace away.
Even the furnace becomes fuel for the fire. All right.
That's pretty good, actually. Sorry, it took me a second to figure it out. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
So knowing that his opponent has at least one counterspell in hand, has the Phyrexian Furnace in play, I feel like this is a pretty rough spot to get out of, unless he brought in that Null Rod and gets pretty lucky on these next couple of draws. But I feel like this dragon deck, the way it's constructed, is definitely geared toward the beginning of the game, and is at this point when we're in grind and discard our own Psychatog zones. It's not looking good for the dragon player. And it is amazing, like Zombie Infestation and 1 Squee, like a 2/2 every turn for a card is like a fair deal, and you get to hold up counterspell. Like Zombie Infestation is a card that I really like in the format. I think the speed with which it takes over games is impressive.
Yeah, definitely, and goes really well with Squee.
Yeah, I mean,
and we have 4 Squee in this deck, so
he could go higher. He could be running those Kerviken horrors too, despite their frustrating need to be underneath the squeeze. I like having 8 of them.
That card's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. But
it just started eating into your Tog, right?
Yeah, it starts eating into the Tog and counterspell stuff. It is nice that Tog can then set up your Kerviken horrors later. Like if you have to discard one early to make a 2/2. Oh man, so that was a pretty good little sequence. Entomb into Animate Dead, forcing him to sacrifice the Furnace. Animate Dead. Oh gosh, I'm gonna just double check. Animate Dead is very complicated. Yeah, it enchants a creature card in the graveyard, so it targets immediately. It's not. There was wording once where it came into play, and then it changed modes. Yeah. And so I was wondering if maybe there was a way to play around like the Phyrexian Furnace with an Entomb, but there is not the way it is currently worded.
Yeah, I was trying to think about that before, and there isn't. Like, you can do it with Exhume in the Reanimator deck.
But, yeah, because it doesn't target. But in this case, yeah, it matters. So so that's interesting. I would have thought Ty would be in a little bit better position game 2 than game 1 with defense grids coming in, since he already had the duresses, and Jake just doesn't have as many cards to bring in. But in that game, it went a little bit more like I might have expected. I think he had a window and he just couldn't find the right.
He did. Well, he whiffed off the draw spells.
Yeah. So interesting. I mean, and that happens sometimes, right? Sometimes you just don't draw the second piece of your combo. But it's interesting. Yeah, I wonder over 100 games or whatever, how often the dragon deck, and versus the Squee deck, how that match turns out, because it does seem pretty close. Interesting. Not as many of the whammy cards as you sometimes see. It's not like he's playing 4 disenchants and 4 swords. I think it's 4 total cards that really destroy you when you're trying to animate 3 or 4, and other than that, you're just kind of dealing with a bunch of counter spells and some duresses. That feels not a terrible place if you're the all-in dragon deck.
Yeah, it's also funny though, because you have to play a lot of games to actually have any matchup experience at all in the format. Not everyone knows exactly how to play against these decks.
Yeah, and it seemed like both players were playing pretty proficiently.
Definitely.
I think they both have probably played the matches or something similar before. But yeah, I just wonder, looking through these two, they definitely seem very tuned for what they believe the meta is, and I think maybe they're targeting slightly different things, but yeah, I think these decks probably have seen a fair amount of iteration. So I'm excited to see how this match turns out.
Yeah, I've been had my expectations reversed many times in game 2, so we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, this definitely feels not super lopsided, at least at the beginning, which is what I want. I feel like I want to experience exciting things happening, and hope that we see a pretty cool third game here. I think that probably hinges a lot on how early Ty sees his combo pieces, and in what order the disruption is drawn for Jake.
Definitely,
because there is a sequence that feels pretty bad where you draw your counterspells and mana leaks late after the defense grid has hit the board, and that can be tough. or your Crosis's Charm. As a 3-drop. I mean, yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around those charms. They are very much the like, these are the 3 modes and each one of them is a color. Like in a way that the modern charms feel a little bit more cohesive maybe, or like more interesting. These are like, here's the green mode, here's the white mode, or what, like Crosis's Charm is blue mode, black mode, red mode. And it's just like, this is a black
That's kind
card.
of how a lot of the Invasion block cards are.
Yeah. Part of the reason that Invasion is sort of fun, like to see cards like that, where they, I mean, that makes sense to me. Like as the first way you're going to do a lot of these like multicolored ideas for the first time, 3-color things and like off-color kickers and all that stuff. Like kind of you can lean into some of the tropes because it hasn't been done before, like some of the color identity things. Now, I feel like in Strixhaven or Alara, you get some more interesting fusions of those.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm reading them now. I actually really like the Rift's Charm than red, green, white one because it has destroy target non-basic land on it.
Nice. Okay,
or
3/1s,
and the other one's Fog.
Oh yeah, Fog is Fog, a source of your choice.
I cast a lot of Naya Charms, and that has Fog on it, and that's the least used mode, but sometimes it's really good.
Yeah, Destroy Target Non-Basic Land as a mode is pretty good. Stone Rain was a much more common printing in this era.
Yeah. And then...
the green, white, blue one's pretty rough.
Yeah, so is the black, red, green one.
Yeah, green, white, blue is destroy target enchantment, remove target attacking creature from the game, or draw a card, then discard a card from your hand.
At least that's like usually a 1-for-1-ish. The Jund one is Raise Dead, or it's 3 damage to creature or player.
Okay.
So or Lightning Bolt or Giant Growth. Raise Dead, Lightning Bolt, Giant Growth.
They couldn't have given it Dark Ritual as the first mode and just gone with all 3 of the...
Well, I guess that would fix you to black, so you could cast Necro in your Jund deck.
Yeah. So we're amidst the action now, and a pretty good amount of action here. We had turn 1, defense grid, and then turn 1 duress from the opponent, looking to see 3 or 2 more defense grids waiting in the wings. So my sense is that there are not a whole lot of spells that are going to get countered this game. But that Phyrexian Furnace is a heck of a follow-up to that turn 1 duress. Boy. This is one of those situations where I wish if I'm the...
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah, No Rod. He brought that in. Neat. Boy, oh, boy. I mean, yeah, so you just use it, right? Because you get to draw a card? Or do you try and beat the Null Rod?
I want my card.
Yeah, that's my impression too.
Or you can Crosis's Charm the Null Rod.
Yeah, that's... I feel like I want the card, because you got to find the Crosis's Charm somehow. But yeah, this is a battle of the sideboard cards for sure. Looks like he wants to draw the card. Yeah. Come on, we're all greedy Magic players. Jeez. Yeah. And definitely you follow up with the second defense grid, right? Slam that thing on the board. Doesn't look like it.
This is pass.
It's interesting. I guess if you have a bunch of Frantic Searches and Careful Studies, like you'd much rather get some more things going. But I might play one more. Guess he's pretty low on cards.
You might end up having to cast multiple of those effects.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, it is a little bit rough. It's not like Faithless Looting where, you kind of get a card or a version of it for free somewhere. Like they all cost you a card.
Maybe if you know you're not doing much, you just wait a turn to do it.
Yeah. At least with a little more information. Yeah, and this line, I am starting to really find the appeal of this. The deck that I played against had a similar thing we were talking about, Frantic Search plus Squee. I think Careful Study plus Squee is also like really good. I think you mostly see Squee, and I guess this does have discards. Well, I guess Forbid is a little bit worse here. You often see Squee with like Zombie Infestation or in survival decks. or compulsion, but even just with careful studies and frantic searches, I feel like it really does represent a pretty big card advantage over time. So
I'm learning that today.
Yeah. It's interesting too. So we just saw the Undiscovered Paradise return to Ty's hand and then, get played again. But that's an interesting thing if you have frantic searches and careful studies in your deck too. Another way to just like get more cards in your hand to keep going if you're flooding a little bit. And, a painless fixer when you're running Ancient Tombs to try and accelerate out some of those big spells. I mean, those intuitions, I think. Or in this case, Defense Grid also. Yeah, it's tough because he is in the spot where he needs to start to be wary of Force of Will plus second Null Rod. Okay. So it's interesting. I guess that makes sense. Phyrexian Furnace is more of a threat to your main game plan than just Counterspell is, like definitionally. So it makes sense to me, I guess, to slam the second Null Rod over the second Defense Grid. Oh, he's just going with both.
Yeah, I would be assuming that both of these would be resolving. Because I counter the second Defense Grid. I know he has the third.
Yeah, I mean, countering second Defense Grid seems tough here. And we don't have any meltdown effects or anything in the in this deck. So like, yes, there are some Croesus Charms and a Chain of Vapor. But yeah, some of those are going to stick on the board. The way this game has developed, like, it's time to just put on the racing tires and get some guys in the red zone here. Like, we need to just stop giving him any more time. Although Duress is a good one. Ooh, and he grabs the Entomb. Rough.
That makes the Defense Grid play look a little greedy.
It does.
Or the second Null Road, whichever.
Yeah, I think I agree with him that I would value based on the sequencing, that I would value the second Null Rod over the second Defense Grid, but I think I would have kept.
But then you'd also have to like main phase the Entomb.
Yeah, the risk is a lot smaller though now with those Null Rods in play, right? I mean, maybe he has an additional card that hates the graveyard, but like, it has to be a non-artifact for you to care about it. It's at that point, what is it, like Planar Void? Okay, my guy's already in the yard.
Yeah, it seems fine.
Or maybe Withered Wretch. I guess that's a thing you might be worried about here. But yeah, I think I like the Entomb.
Right, so we have another careful study.
Just ditching those counter spells since they aren't doing a whole lot for us.
Yeah.
Another Duress to take this second. I don't know if I like that Duress very much.
Yeah, I'd prefer to hold it.
I mean, at this point, yeah, there's two Defense Crits in play. Like, what are you... I guess you're trying to keep cards out of his hand because Careful Study and Frantic Search, again, are just his ways of drawing, and you want to make it so that they're more painful. But, yeah, I don't know. I think that Duress might have been a little early.
Yeah, it's a risk calculation.
It's definitely your best disruptive spell that you're left with at this point. Compulsion is good, though. That really gets your draw spells going. He just needs to find a Zombie Infestation or a Psychatog, though. Like,
right.
Over time of like everybody kind of staring each other down, you have to assume that
yeah, Zombie seems like the best plan to win the game. Tog, second best.
Yeah, I mean,
everything else is getting you there.
Yeah, Tog is representing a fair amount of damage with those squeeze also, and like you kind of hope that with the compulsion you can build up some more squeeze. Like if you get 3 or 4 squeeze going at that point, either one of them is doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, so for every squeeze you get another point of damage, especially if you can then like intuition for 3 more squeeze.
Yeah. And there's that careful study. And I assume you like are just looking for more careful studies at this point, or frantic searches. I mean, he does have the Undiscovered Paradise in his hand. Yeah, that painful mana base is kind of coming back to get Jake here. He's down to 15. I mean, they're both at 15, but it's interesting. Like, of his lands that are in play, if he wants to activate compulsion, he has to pay life every time. Oh, there he found the Polluted Delta. But yeah, it's a much more painful mana base than the one Ty is working with, other than the Ancient Tomb.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, with intuition for AK versus Squee, the Squee has the Tog synergy, but the AK sort of doesn't.
Other than the fact that you can Cunning Wish for the other AKs or whatever, if you remove it, like that's kind of a synergy. Ooh, intuition feels like a very good get here.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably you just get 2 dragons and the Liquatus, right? I would think. Because even with Liquatus in your hand, that means any Frantic Search or Careful Study puts it in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Called it.
If he had a Gigapede.
Right. I was thinking the same thing.
You could guarantee to get the ones you wanted. But
I can't believe you beat me to the if he had a Gigapede.
Hey, these are important lines. I think it's probably correct to not waste the slot for this particular case, but
yeah, I only do it if I can hardcast it, probably.
Yeah, I do love a Gigapede though. It is quite the threat against your average control deck in middle school. The 6/1 Shroud creature that just always comes back. Like eventually they're gonna run out of counter spells.
Unless they were smart and brought some graveyard removal.
True.
All right, we're tapping mana for compulsion shenanigans, probably.
Looks that way. Oh, so the second Squee. So that means we're just taking damage from our compulsions, not actually going down cards at all. Man, is there, I don't know, maybe the card he drew was very good. I was trying to figure out like what card is so much better than Zombie Infestation that I don't just like pitch the last ones. Maybe you're worried about dealing yourself damage.
One sort of funny thing about infinite combo decks is that you don't have like the chip option, and so sometimes maybe if your opponents can do things with their life total, that can be bad.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's no way that he's going to deal like the last point of damage. I don't think he's going to attack with his Liquatus or anything.
Yeah.
Although at this point he can cast. Yep.
There we go.
Hard cast Liquatus, I was going to say. And now if he draws Animate, that's better than discarding it, I suppose. And killing it doesn't do anything. He doesn't have Swords to Plowshares. Yeah, this seems like a very safe play. At first I was like, oh, what if? And then I couldn't figure out what the what if was that killed him. Because he doesn't run swords. Yeah, that seems like a very strong play. He can chip in, as it turns out.
Yeah, I don't think we have any counter spells that exile in this list. Yep.
Man, if this Liquatus goes the distance, I am going to be
well, yeah, you don't want to mill your opponent, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was talking about damage, not milling.
So compulsion, does that cost 1 life to activate?
It doesn't normally, but he is playing. He has only 1 island.
Okay.
So all of his other blue sources are Painlands, either City of Brass or Underground River.
Oof.
So I think his life total is actually lower than the 13 that's being represented over there.
We're chaining.
Are we in the end step? Or is that main phase?
We're chaining Liquatus.
Oh, I think he tried to do it end step and then was reminded that defense grid is in play.
He said, you have 6 extra mana?
Nice.
No.
I hope that's what he said. That's
what he said. Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the difference there is not huge, but I can't believe he hasn't found a Zombie Infestation. I wonder if he sided them out, thinking that he had to be more controlling.
But they performed well the last game.
They did. All right, now I'm going to chain a Vapor your Ambassador Liquatus.
I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what that accomplishes, but it seems fine. I think he's decided. I mean, you don't want to chain back. Like what, you hit compulsion? Oh, he's just milling. Let's go. What card is Cabal Therapy?
Therapy.
I was like, that's not
now you can hardcast Squee and flashback the therapy.
Got him.
And now Laquatus is in the graveyard.
The line. That's the line. Oh, whoa, buddy.
What
the order change, reordering the graveyard. We just talked about. No, it's fine. I think I thought for a second that was the flashback eat a card from your opponent's graveyard, and I was like, oh my god.
The Coffin Purge? Oh,
yeah, he doesn't have Coffin Purge, but I was like very excited for a minute. He's like, all right, I've drawn 37 extra cards. None of them are Zombie Infestation or Psychatog. Maybe the next one will be.
Oh yeah, I got double Coffin Purge to my like intuition for Roar or something.
Ugh,
playing that.
Coffin Purge, so good. Especially, I love Coffin Purge and Tog. Like discarding it and then eating their thing is super good.
You can Cunning Wish for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a thing that we don't see in this Tog Squee compulsion deck. There's no Cunning Wishes. That's a thing that I think of as a common feature of Tog decks that isn't here.
Just couldn't fit it in, I guess.
He also has one Zurin Orb in the sideboard, which I respect. Oh, he did play the Squee. And Cabal Therapy.
Yes. I don't know what this does.
I mean, I assume he's going to name Animate Dead, right? Not the Laquatus? What's that last? Oh, it's Whispers of the Muse. Yeah, I don't understand that at all. He wants it in the graveyard. I mean, I guess it does defeat the chip damage plan. And he does still have 4 extra mana. So he can't counter anything. I'm not sure what we accomplished just then, but I'm glad that it happened.
Me too.
How far away is he from casting Whispers of the Muse, like with buyback? I guess you want to just draw into your win count though here.
Can do it already, but you have to like tap Ancient Tomb and
Undiscovered Paradise, so it takes your only land drop too.
Let's just try to win the game.
Yeah, it seems better. Seems much better to just win the game. Wow, yeah, navigated really well, I think, by this dragon player. Interestingly...
Yeah, there was no clock in response to the defense grid plan.
Yeah. I was going to say, if he had just Chain of Vapored the Laquatus, there was not enough mana... Assuming he had to cast that Whispers of the Muse and everything else, like, there was not enough mana to just win. Here, he would have had to cast Laquatus and pass again. So by virtue of Cabal Therapy, he killed himself, I think. Well, no, that's not true. He had the Whispers of the Muse in his hand, so he could draw to Cunning Wish to stroke or whatever.
Yeah. Might not have mattered, but
yeah, it seems like they were talking about the Phyrexian Furnace plan. Boy, I wonder what else was cited out from the Dragon list if he brought in all the defense grids and all the null rods. Like, that's kind of impressive. Is there anything that you recall not seeing in game 2, or do you think maybe he just like shaved a dragon or something? Because we saw intuitions, we saw frantic searches, I think.
Yeah, maybe it was the little bit of everything plan. You know, you cut some entombs, maybe. You know, some studies, some whispers. Yeah, like one Animate Dead or something. Maybe you don't care about duress if you're bringing in grids. I thought so maybe he cut his duresses after game 2 because he had duress in game 2. I'm pretty sure. Maybe not though. Maybe I think the best use of duress is getting the counter spells, and you don't care about them if you have grids. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's fair. Good games again. I mean, again, we saw a really kind of crazy match play out. I think our Tog player got pretty unlucky not to find any threat for all those turns, but still, like, a really good game, really good back and forth, and a good sideboard plan out of the Dragon deck kind of took it home. That Phyrexian Furnace looked like it was going to be devastating after the, like, duress, take your one draw spell so you're just left with defense grids and then play the thing, and then he just ripped that null rod and shattered his dreams. I was very excited by that. And I was also wondering, like, okay, we have 3 grids, 2 null rods. are you going to draw enough cards to win the game? And
Yeah,
we got there.
Turned out, given enough time. But yeah, no, good games. I was very impressed, and to all those out there who watched the stream, we really appreciate it. I hope you had as much fun watching this great format as we did. Yeah, so I'm just so glad to see all the awesome things that everyone's doing.
Yeah, me too. This is great. It's really cool to just see this happening in, you know, different cities, clubs, discords, wherever.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've said this a couple times. Pretty much every time I play a match against somebody that's not from Cleveland, which is where I am, man, you guys have just a totally different meta than we do. It's like, it's cool to see how it's evolved differently in all these different places. So
yeah, definitely.
I think Caffrey has his own meta in his head. That's a whole bunch of decks that I have never played, but
exactly.
They're all great. Yeah. So thanks so much. And I hope you guys, if you're watching this later, you know, check out our future things. I think there'll be another broadcast next Thursday. Different casters, but I hope you get some good matches there too. I can't imagine they would be as cool of decks as this week, but let's hope. Let's see.
Yeah, let's hope.